All right, guys, so we're back with a new video. Today I'm going to be showing you how to change out the spark plugs on your Ford F150 with the 3.5 Ecoboost. Now, we're going to be working on a 2018 model, but this should apply for most of them. All right, so we're in our engine compartment. You want to remove your engine cover as the first step, and that's a 10mm socket, so there's two of them here. We'll get both of these off and remove the cover. And then the cover just simply lifts straight up and pulls straight out. So we're gonna start on the driver's side first, and we need to remove the coil packs to be able to get to the spark plug. So if you see on here this little white clip, these actually just slide backwards. You can just pop it backwards, will come right off, just like that. Now you can see the fasteners that are holding the coil packs down here. This is an 8mm. So we'll loosen that up, we'll remove the bolt. Now there is a washer on here, but it's actually captive to the bolt, so it won't fall off. So once that's free, we'll just set it to the side. Now to remove this, because this is in the way, on the back side there is a gray plastic clip. You can kind of see the front side of it here. You have to pull it down and off to the side, and then this should come right off, just like that. And we'll just move it off to the side here, and then that gives us access to this particular coil pack. So what you want to do, you don't want to just rip it out of here, right? You want to kind of wiggle it side to side, and then also make sure your engine is cold, otherwise you may have a bad day, right? We're gonna wiggle this side to side, and then this comes right out. Now we want to inspect the end of this here for any burning or anything like that. You'll see that there's dielectric grease inside of there, so it's pretty clean. Now, if we look down inside of the hole, if you have any debris in there, what you can do is you can take like a wet dry vac and put the hose over the hole, and it should suck some of the stuff out. You can also use like compressed air if you want, but we need to get the spark plug out now. Now, while I don't anticipate any debris in here because this is the first time these plugs have been changed, I'm just gonna blow some air in here anyways. Now, as far as removing the existing spark plug, you're gonna need a 5/8 spark plug socket with a long extension. Once it gets loose enough, you can just take your ratchet off and spin it out by hand. And the spark plug socket does have a little rubber grommet inside, so it should hold on to the spark plug. All right, and there's our first plug. Let's go take a peek in the garage, see what this looks like. All right, now here is the plug that we just took out. It's actually not in too bad a shape, and the gap is supposed to be .030 for stock without a tune. It's definitely a little bit bigger than a .030, but I mean, it's not in super bad shape considering this truck has 86,000 miles on it. They recommend 60 to 100,000 miles as the change interval. Now there's a lot of talk about, hey, which type of plug do I use? A lot of people use the SP580. You know, they stick with the Ford Motorcraft plugs. Well, what we're gonna be using is the Ruthenium HX from NGK. Now, there's also talk that the original plug is an NGK Iridium. So these are Ruthenium plugs. These come pre-gapped when you buy them. I believe I paid $14.99 a piece for these. So, you know, it's not a cheap job to do it, but the alternative is bringing this to the dealer and having them do the job for, you know, probably $300 to $400 for 6 plugs plus labor. All right, so I have my .06 and a .024, so that gives us our .030. And we're gonna check to make sure that the stock gap on here is right. And it grabs on here pretty well. Now, this is just your standard feeler gauge. There's a bunch of different types. I prefer this type. And there's the little discs that you can get. I think this one is the best style for checking these. So we don't need to adjust them. We're gonna leave them at .030. The recommended is .030 to .033, and that's on a stock engine. If you have a tune, then obviously the gap I think needs to be a little bit smaller, like a .028. But I'm gonna go through, I'm gonna check all 6 of these, and then we're gonna install these one by one. Now, you don't need anything else on here. You don't need to put anti-seize on here or anything like that. We're just gonna install the plug. We're gonna torque it to the recommended torque spec with a torque wrench. Install the coil pack, and then we'll move to the next one. Now, if you find that your gap is a little too big, they do sell tools that there's like a little, almost like a spark plug vise that you put in. You can put the spark plug in and you can turn the end of it and it'll bend this over. I find that just like tapping this on a hard surface, like something like a vise or something, you can actually adjust that a little bit. There are other tools that you can use that grab onto the edge, and you can either bend it open or close. But typically, if you buy one of these at one of the, I guess you could call them like a big box auto supply store, or even off Amazon, they're typically gapped to 0.0, 3.0 for the F150. So for the 2018, the torque spec on the spark plugs is 133 inch-pounds. So we're gonna be using this torque wrench here. All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna take our spark plug, we're gonna stick it into our spark plug socket and slowly insert that down into the cylinder. And you wanna make sure you don't cross thread this, so just take your time. I hand tighten these as far as I can, and then we'll put the torque wrench on it. It doesn't seem like much, but that is what Ford calls for. Okay, now we're gonna reinstall our coil pack, and if you have some dielectric grease, it'd be a good time to put a little bit on here and a little bit right on here, and it's gonna help you slide this in. All right, and all you simply do is just slide your coil pack back in place. Make sure it's sitting down in there all the way. We'll put our bolt back in. I'm sure these have a torque spec on them, but I'm just gonna hand tighten them. Obviously, you don't want to go crazy because you don't want to break it. It is a plastic valve cover with just a metal like nutsert in it. What you don't want to do is forget to connect this, because then you'll have all sorts of problems. So we'll seat that connector on there, we'll push that white locking mechanism in, and then we're good to go. And then we can just take this, put this back on until it clicks in place, and then we're good to go. Now we'll move on to the next one. So on the passenger side, I have oil catch can. If you watch that other video that I have on my channel, this is that catch can, and these hoses are actually in the way of me pulling that out. So I'm just gonna actually rotate them out of the way if I can here. The original hose that was here shouldn't be a problem for you, but I just need to move this out of the way so we can get this coil pack out of here. Now I also forgot to mention, after you pull this connector back, if you press down on it, that's what actually releases from the tab on here. Don't forget to press that little white tab in, that's what locks this in place. Now the back one I think is going to be the most difficult because you have some wiring in a way. But the connector comes off really easy. And you just want to be careful you don't rip this wire out of here when you're trying to take this back coil pack out. And it's in a spot, unfortunately, where you're leaning over your fender and it's kind of hard to get good leverage on this thing. Just make sure you clear that wire before you pull on it. And it should come right out. Now on this back one, if you're using a long extension, you may want to opt for 2 4-inch because when you go to take it out with a spark plug, it actually is going to hit the bottom side of this. And I was able to actually get the clearance to pull this last plug out. And we'll do the same to put it back in, pull that out. And then once we get the plug started, we can switch back to the other extension and then we'll tighten this in all the way. And then torque it down, and that's the last one. And this is less than an hour job. And that's it. All we have to do is put our coil pack and our connector back on, the engine cover, and we're good to go. Super easy. Save yourself a ton of money instead of bringing it to the dealer. If you're handy, you can definitely do this yourself. Now all we have to do is put our engine cover back in, and if you see those 2 white clips back there, that actually goes onto this piece here at the back of the engine cover. So all we do is we slip that in there, and then we put our 2 10mm nuts on the front, tighten it down, and we're good to go. And before you go to put this on, just double check, make sure all of your coil pack connectors are back on, everything's tightened down good, and if you had to remove anything else, such as this right side breather hose, make sure that goes back on. And then we'll put both of our 10mm nuts on. That's all there is to it. All right, moment of truth. All right, we started right up. Let's take it for a test ride. All right, guys, so it's a super simple job, less than an hour if you have the correct tools, and you're gonna save yourself a couple $100 as opposed to taking it to the dealer. The spark plugs are still gonna run you, you know, probably 80, 90, $100, depending on the ones that you choose. I went with the NGK Rutheniums, and they seem to be working well. I'm pretty happy. Truck's running smooth. It did have a little like hesitation around 1500 RPM prior to me changing them, so that's what I was going for when I did this swap out. I do have almost 90,000 miles on the truck, and it seems to be running great now. So thanks for watching, guys. Check out my other F-150 content. I have a bunch of other videos out there. Until next time.